Salam alaikum. Dear colleagues and friends, it's a great honor for me to speak here today to you on the meeting of the Egyptian Society of the Metabolic Syndrome in Ismail. And it's an honor for me as Peter Schwartz, as Professor for Prevention and Care of Diabetes and being the president of the International Diabetes Federation. What you are just doing, coming together, exchanging ideas, focusing on prevention of diabetes, focusing on improved care for people living with diabetes, and also improved accessibility and availability of diabetes care. This is the asset of the International Diabetes Federation. But what is needed is cooperation, and this is what you are doing at this meeting currently. So go ahead. It's a great honor for me to speak to you and to facilitate this process. What I would like to do is addressing the view of the International Diabetes Federation on prevention of diabetes, because this is tightly interconnected with each other, also into care, also into policy development, and many facets of the management of people with chronic diseases. So again, a very warm welcome. What is always stimulating me in my work as a president of IDF, it's the faces of these people living with diabetes, because they deserve a better quality of life. They deserve a better accessibility and availability of diabetes care. And there are many people living with diabetes on Earth. The IDF Atlas talks about 589 million people living with diabetes, and WHO talks about more than 800 million people with diabetes on Earth. It makes no sense to have two different numbers, but they are related to different diagnostic criteria which were used for the studies. But the numbers are too high. This is a call to action that we have to do something, that we have to come together and to cooperate to hold this rise of number of people living with diabetes. And then the question comes, where are they? And they are in low and very low income countries. So about 80% of people living with diabetes come from China, India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. But also in the Near East and in the Gulf region, there's an explosion of diabetes, number of people living with diabetes, and in the upcoming 10 years also in Africa. So if we want to be successful, we have to be successful there. But there are new facets of, new faces of diabetes, we could say. This slide shows you the conjunction of air pollution and type 2 diabetes. So air pollution is becoming a determinant for the development of diabetes. And it might not be so relevant in Europe and North America, but if you are looking here, Southeast Asia, in Africa and Egypt, air pollution is becoming a relevant determinant for the development of type 2 diabetes. But if I would stand in front of you, I would ask you, what do you think is the main determinant for the development of diabetes from a global scale? And there are hundreds of risk factors, hundreds of determinants. But if you can only choose one, what is it? And I would choose fried carbs. If you fry carbs at a temperature of above 130 degrees Celsius, then you build bonds between glucose and fat. Yeah? And we eat them because we enjoy this. This is quality of life for many of us. And we incorporate them into our bloodstream, the metabolism, and the body needs a lot of energy to break this bond. And in a constant inflow of energy or overnutrition, this is not needed. So this bond between glucose and fat, or these molecules, are stored in the body. And where are they stored? In the liver. So this is the main determinant for the development of MAFLD and MASH. And this is the main determinant for an aggressive form of diabetes. But there is also a lot of hope to hold this right. And these two numbers explain what is successful prevention. If we would be physically active from the age of 22, we nearly would prevent any chronic disease from developing. Unfortunately, we are not doing it. It's actually getting better. If you have diabetes and you walk only 1,000 steps more than you normally does, it lowers the postprandial blood sugar by 1.5 millimole. This is twice as much as 1,000 milligram of metformin are doing. So the physical activity is a very strong determinant for successful prevention. But if let me jump back. If we look into the reality, what is the physical activity we do per day? It's about 2,500 steps. So we are lazy, and this translates to about 23 hours and 40 minutes a day. We are physical inactive. And this is part of the problem. We are not using the physiology, the energy metabolism of our body anymore to prevent diseases because we became lazy. But we could say, okay, pathophysiology is irrelevant. And what we see here is healthy. This is a young woman, high normal A1C, and the green arrows means she's eating something. So she's always eating. We could say she's doing everything wrong. But measured by CGM over 24 hours, we see a totally flat glucose curve. We learned by the use of the sensors that health is different than we thought in the past. Healthy individuals have a flat glucose curve compared to her father. It's truly her father. The father actually have a better A1C than the daughter, but a total different curve. And you see this up and down of glucose. And today we know that this up and down, this fluctuation of glucose defines morbidity and mortality of our patients. So two people both have an A1C of 7. The one has mild fluctuation, the other one has big fluctuation. The one with a big fluctuation gets a stroke or a heart attack. The one with a mild fluctuation may not even need an intensive treatment. But what is the difference between both? Here, the daughter. The daughter is very insulin sensitive. She needs about 1% of the insulin to regulate blood sugar, and the father is very insulin resistant. So measures of prevention in the stage of the father would be exactly the right way to go ahead, but we don't find them. We cannot use a sensor for screening, at least not yet, but in a few years, if the sensor prices drop to $1 per 2 weeks, we will be able to do it. And this will disruptively change our ways of doing diabetology, but this is not yet possible. But the consequence or the concept stays. Reduction of fluctuation of glucose is of improvement for outcome and quality of life for our patients. Looking into the physiology a little bit deeper, you see here the development of hyperglycemia. Many years before, the insulin is increasing. This is insulin resistance. The daughter is about here, and the father is about here at about 80% insulin resistant, because this is a typical scenario for the father, that he's very insulin resistant. So the daughter very insulin sensitive, the father very insulin resistant. And all this is developed by the visceral obesity and free fatty acids. But now there's a new player, and this is the hepatic fat, the liver fat on this game. And you see here, at a stage of the father, the liver fat accumulates, and this drives the insulin resistance for the father, and then continuously goes up. And at the end, this is the development of metabolic syndrome, and years before the development of hyperglycemia. Because here hyperglycemia starts, here we diagnose hyperglycemia, and the logical consequence is to act earlier, act in the stage of metabolic syndrome, act early in the stage of accumulation of liver fat or insulin resistance to halt the development of diabetes. At the end, the interplay between visceral fat and hepatic fat define morbidity and mortality. The visceral fat, by the secretion of more than 800 known peptide hormones, would increase the risk of chronic diseases. And the hepatic fat, by the pure presence of fat in the liver, we know 100-gram fat of the liver makes you becoming a non-responder to physical activity. So you do physical activity, you walk 10,000 steps, but it counts only as 2,000 steps because of the fat in the liver. And this is very frustrating for our patients. But there's a lot of hope again. And this was shown a few years ago from Taylor. If we have fat in the liver, we always have it also in the pancreas, and this destroys beta cell function. But also the opposite works. If you remove the fat out of the liver, we also remove it out of the pancreas, and it restores beta cell function. And this may lead to a remission of diabetes. So remission of diabetes. Remission of diabetes. So how can we get the fat out of the liver? This is a question. And again, the answer is very simple. It's fasting. If you fast for 2 weeks without eating anything, or if you fast for 10 weeks by eating about 300 kilocalories per day, you remove the fat totally out of the liver and the pancreas up to a degree of about 200, 250 grams of fat in the liver. If you have more, you have to fast longer or twice. If you have less, it's going 1 or 2 days faster. So fasting can become an innovation in diabetes care in the future. But we also have to understand where the metabolic disease is coming from. And here you see 380,000 patient years on this slide. And it analyzes if we drink one soft drink per day, and I apologize, I broke the presentation. If you drink one soft drink per day over the period of 1 year, what it does with your diabetes risk. And here you see 380,000 patient years, and here you see water. If you drink water every day, it's not increasing your diabetes risk. So it seems to be that water is a healthy drink. The opposite, if you drink industrialized soft drinks, it's 40% like regular cola. But if you use a Diet Coke or Coke Zero, it's 60% increase of diabetes risk per year. How can this be that the Coke without sugar is making more diabetes than the Coke with sugar? And the answer are artificial sweetener. And there is a very nice study showing that if you consume a certain amount of artificial sweetener every day, and the threshold is actually very low, it's very easy to exceed this threshold, it changes your microbiome. So the microbiome, the consumption of all the bacteria in our gut, they change. There are 14 different bacteria invading our gut. They still help us to digest. And we don't feel this. But this bacteria produce metabolites. And these metabolites are basically the stool of this bacteria. These metabolites are in our gut there. And what are they? It's a glucose molecule built to a fatty acid. And it's a similar molecule, what is developed or what it's generated if you fry carbs. And now it's in our gut, and of course, we incorporate it in our body. It's getting stored, and it's getting stored in the liver. And by this, you accumulate liver fat, and this makes you becoming a non-responder to physical activity. And in my eyes, this is the start of I apologize for the word, the devil's circle in the development to diabetes. But again, there's hope. And the hope is the development of smart health and AI technology, which will be disruptive in the prevention sector. Here you see gray how our drugs lower A1C, how lifestyle is doing it. And here at the end, how young digital tools are lowering A1C. So what are young digital tools? These are smartphone-based apps. And how can a smartphone-based app lower A1C? And the answer is we are in the pocket of our patients. Now, being in the pocket of the patient means something. Every one of us is taking about 1,800 decisions every day. 450 are related to our lifestyle. Now imagine by using smartphone-based technology or AI-driven interventions, in the right moment, with the right motivational motif, with the right content, we set impulses to influence only 10 out of the 450 lifestyle-related decisions. But we do this during the period of 1 year. We may translate this into 10 kilograms of weight reduction. So I am very sure from a global scale that smartphone technology together with AI-based intervention improve and increase accessibility to modern diabetes care and modern diabetes prevention. So the future of the International Diabetes Federation education program could look like this. And I think we will have the chance to reach many, many more patients than we are reaching today. And there are good developments already. Here's one example from Germany. Using AI technology, you make a photo of your food and it's qualifying and quantifying, and they are accurate. And it doesn't matter, is it Asian food or American or German or European food? They are accurate, and this helps us not to blame the patient, what the patient is eating, but using this information to help the patient to improve their next meal. And also, swarm intelligence-based solutions, again, using a sensor And every patient having a sensor is compared to a swarm of 1,000 other patients, and they are tracking their daily life. And this app is making very clear recommendation in 6 areas of diabetes care. So, and it's including the change of the dosage of drugs. So it's making treatment recommendations by analyzing the group of 1,000 patients. So this is diabetology out of the pocket of the patient. And especially for regions where you have low access to qualified endocrinology or diabetology, this could be brilliant for people living with diabetes. And of course, they use AI technology, analyzing the curve and the trends, and by this translating it into a treatment recommendation. I want to come to the fasting again. And we know eating less is healthy. Maybe we could say eating nothing for 2 weeks is even more healthy because you lose a lot of weight. But this is not the main thing. You abolish your liver fat, you reset the microbiome, and this is a very fast gain of health. Every one of us, every one of our patients can generate themselves. Here you see MRI spectroscopy, and it's a picture showing the liver, and the cloudy stuff is the liver fat in it. And this is before the fasting, and this is after the fasting. I jump back again, and this is before the fasting, and this is after the fasting. I think this shows you the power of fasting as let me say it as a reset button for metabolic diseases. I'm installed as president of IDF and working group developing a guideline on fasting and diabetes. And one of 19 different fasting styles the guideline will talk about is the water fasting. And on this slide, you see everything what is necessary and important for the water fasting for 2 weeks. But it also works for 10 weeks if you eat 300 to maximum 500 kilocalories per day. Some people mean 2 weeks eating nothing is easier than 10 weeks eating only a little bit, but this is a choice everyone can make. This is the fasting and diabetes group led by Mohamed Hassanain and Daniela Koppold. So one colleague from Egypt is leading the fasting group. And here you see all the different fasting styles which will be addressed for the treatment of people with type 2 diabetes. There is a group also led by Ina Shartut from Egypt, Prevention of Obesity and Diabetes in Adolescents. And they have developed already a very comprehensive program, public health program for prevention of obesity and diabetes in adolescents. And there is a type 5 diabetes working group, yeah, and it's truly type 5. It's a new kind of diabetes, which maybe in the past was seen as malnutrition-related diabetes. But this group is very actively working on developing a guideline and recommendations for diagnosing and recommendations how to treat type 5 diabetes. Even more, type 4 diabetes led by colleagues from India to harmonize the guidelines for type 4 diabetes, and working group on AI and diabetes very actively trying to develop guidance for responsible use of AI in diabetes care, and a strong cooperation with WHO, working together with WHO to harmonize criteria how to assess prevalence of diabetes. So if we ask the question, preventing type 2 diabetes, why, when, and how? Why is because we understand how to do it, and diabetes is increasing. When? As early as possible. And how? By combining all our technology or knowledge of early intervention to tackle the development, the physiological roots of diabetes development. And at the end, I apologize for disrupting the presentation again. At the end, as president of the International Diabetes Federation, I have 3 goals. I want to be in the diary or the brain of the health politician worldwide. I want to be in the pocket of every diabetes patient and in the heart of every diabetes care provider. How to reach this? Number 1 will be a global diabetes index, and I would like to invite all of you in the next upcoming weeks to participate in the Global Diabetes Index project. And it means once a year to fill out a questionnaire of 121 questions. So it's a long questionnaire, but it represents everything what is relevant for diabetes care in your environment. And we will count more than 100,000 voices globally and translate this into a score. And by this, will make the quality of diabetes care comparable between Egypt and Germany, or between Kerala and Wisconsin. And we will play this back to politicians and hope to build a momentum for them to act. Secondly, diabetes education out of the pocket of the patient. Imagine an IDF diabetes education app freely accessible for anyone who has a smartphone. I know not everyone has a smartphone, but it's growing very fast. In using this technology, we will reach many, many more patients than we are able to reach today. And this is important by encouraging them to improve the self-management and self-empowerment of patients to adhere to a preventive or a diabetes adherence lifestyle. Finally, it could look like this out of the pocket of the patient to help the people living with diabetes to close gaps in diabetes education. And finally, I'm inviting you to become fellow of the International Diabetes Federation, because being in the heart of every healthcare provider means being in our heart, developing the International Diabetes Federation as our International Diabetes Federation. And the fellowship program is exactly the right way to go ahead. So if you are interested to become fellow of IDF, you are warmly invited. Go to the website, apply for it, or register for it. There's a senior fellowship program for experienced people and a fellowship program for every one of you. And you are very, very welcome. I would be very happy if you use some of the social media channels, for example, LinkedIn, and follow the activities of the International Diabetes Federation. Follow the activities I want to invite you, because building a global community of those who are active in improving quality of diabetes care, this is what the International Diabetes Federation is about. And I think this is also what the Egyptian Society of the Metabolic Syndrome is about. So let's work together as the IDF family to hold the rise of people living with diabetes worldwide. Again, invitation to social media if you are able to scan this code now. And finally, don't forget these faces of people living with diabetes. They deserve a better quality of care. They deserve a better life. Let's work together to do whatever we can do with our intuition, our motivation, our energy, our enthusiasm to finally walk away from diabetes. Shukran, shukriya. Thank you very much for your attention.